There is a cedar chest in the upstairs room of my farmhouse, built by my grandfather out of wood he cut and planed himself in 1951. Inside that chest are 114 letters he wrote to my grandmother during the 2 years they courted before they married. I read through every one of those letters on a rainy afternoon about 6 years ago. He wrote about the weather, about a fence post that split in a storm, about a calf that came early, about the way the light looked on the pond behind the Hirschberger place one evening in October. 114 letters written by a man who had no telephone, no television, no automobile, and not a single thing that most folks today would call entertainment. And do you know the one word that never appears, not once, in 114 letters? Bored. My name is Elias Yoder. I am Amish. I keep 11 hives of honeybees on this farm, and my wife tends roughly half an acre of flowers and herbs the pollinators depend on. We have been married 34 years. Our children grew up in a house with no screens, no video games, no streaming services, and not one of them, not ever, came to us and said they had nothing to do. That is not because we are special. It is because the way we live does something that the way most of the English live no longer does. And forgive me, that is just what we call folks outside our community, no disrespect in it. There is a reason your children are bored with 1,000 channels to choose from. There is a reason you are bored with the whole internet in your pocket. And there is a reason that psychologists at two of the best research universities in North America just published studies that say what my grandfather already knew before he wrote his first letter. The answer is not what the people selling you entertainment want you to hear. And then I am going to tell you the part that should make you uneasy, because somebody is making a very good living, keeping you on that couch, swiping and scrolling, and never quite satisfied, and they have studied exactly how to do it. By the end of this, you will know why boredom works the way it does, what the Amish do differently without even thinking about it, and 3 things you can change this weekend that will not cost you a dime. Stay with me. Here is what most folks get wrong about boredom. They think boredom means you do not have enough to do. That is backwards. Boredom almost never comes from having nothing to do. It comes from having nothing you care about doing. There is a difference between those 2 things that is about a mile wide, and it matters. Think about the last time you sat on your couch with a remote in your hand, flipping through 200 channels and finding nothing worth watching. You had more choices in front of you than my grandfather had in his entire life. You were more bored than he ever was. That is not because the shows were bad. It is because the choosing itself drained something out of you before you ever sat down to watch. There was a professor at the University of Chicago, a Hungarian fellow by the name of Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. Forgive the mouthful. I will just call him the professor from here on. He spent over 40 years studying one question, not what makes people miserable, what makes people so absorbed in what they are doing that they forget to eat, forget to check the clock, forget themselves entirely. He published his findings in 1990 in a book he called Flow, and what he found was so simple it almost sounds too plain to be true. The professor said a person gets into that state of pure absorption, that flow state, when 3 things line up at the same time. First, you need a clear goal. You need to know what you are trying to do. Second, you need immediate feedback. You need to be able to see, right then and there, whether what you are doing is working or not. And third, the challenge of the task needs to match your skill. Not too easy, so you get restless. Not too hard, so you get frustrated. Right in that sweet spot where you have to pay attention, but you believe you can manage it. Now here is where it gets interesting for someone like me, because when I read about those 3 conditions, I did not see a laboratory experiment. I saw my Tuesday. When I go out to work a hive, I know exactly what I am after. I am checking the brood pattern, I am looking for the queen, I am watching for mites. Clear goal. I can see within 30 seconds whether those bees are healthy or stressed. Immediate feedback. And after keeping bees for as long as I have, the work is not boring, but it is not overwhelming either. It is right in that middle place where my hands know what to do, but my eyes still have to stay sharp. That is the professor's 3 conditions met before breakfast, and I never read his book until my neighbor's granddaughter brought it home from college. My wife gets into that same state in her garden every single morning. She knows what she is planting, she can see it grow, and after decades of tending that soil, she works at a level where the challenge still keeps her sharp. She does not call it flow, she calls it work. But it is the same thing the professor measured in his laboratory. Here is the part nobody in the entertainment business wants to talk about. In 2024, 2 researchers at the University of Toronto, a social psychologist named Katie Tam and her colleague Michael Inslicht, published a study with 7 experiments and over 1,200 people. They wanted to know what happens when you do the thing everybody does with short videos online: skipping, fast-forwarding, swiping to the next one before the first one is finished. Most people believe that switching to something new when you get bored will make the boredom go away. That is what it feels like it should do. But across all 7 experiments, Tam and Inslicht found the opposite. People who switched between videos were more bored afterward than people who stayed with one video all the way through. I will say that again because it matters. The people who kept flipping to find something better ended up more bored, more restless, and less satisfied than the people who simply sat still and paid attention to what was in front of them. The average American spends roughly 7 hours a day looking at a screen. 7 hours. That is more time than my grandfather spent awake during the short days of winter. And at the end of those 7 hours, the research is now telling us, a good portion of those folks are more bored than they were when they sat down. You are not running out of entertainment. You are drowning in it. And the drowning is the problem. Now I am not a scientist. I am a beekeeper. But let me tell you what I see when I hold the professor's 3 conditions up next to the way my community lives, and then hold them up next to the way the English live. And I think the difference will explain more than any study can. In an Amish household, the day is full of tasks with clear goals. You are splitting wood because the pile is low. You are mending a harness because the horse needs it tomorrow. You are canning tomatoes because 40 jars will carry your family through February. Nobody stands in the kitchen wondering what to do. The work is obvious. It is right there. The feedback is immediate. You swing the axe and the round splits, or it does not. You stitch the leather and you can pull on it and feel whether it holds. You process the jars, and by evening they are lined up on the shelf, sealed and gleaming, and you can count them. There is no quarterly review. There is no waiting 6 months for your performance evaluation. You did the work. You can see it, you can touch it, and the challenge matches the skill, because every child in our community learns these tasks from the time they can walk. A 5-year-old is not bored because he is collecting eggs, and collecting eggs is just hard enough for a 5-year-old that it demands his full attention. A 15-year-old is not bored because she is running the saw, and running the saw demands hers. You grow into harder work the same way you grow into bigger shoes. The fit is always close. The English world, and I say this with respect, has pulled those 3 conditions apart. Your work is often disconnected from any visible result. You type into a machine all day, and something happens somewhere you cannot see. Your feedback loop runs through managers and meetings and dashboards, and the challenge is either far too little, so your mind wanders, or far too much, so you burn out. Neither of those is flow. One is restlessness. The other is collapse. The couch and the screen are where you go to recover from both, and the screen makes it worse, which sends you back to the screen, which makes it worse again. That is a loop that makes somebody a great deal of money. Trust me on this. There is an entire industry built on keeping you in that loop, not the making you happy industry, the keeping you almost happy industry. The algorithm that feeds you the next video is not designed to satisfy you. It is designed to keep you watching. If it satisfied you, you would stop. And if you stopped, the advertisements would stop and somebody's revenue would drop. That is not a conspiracy. That is a business model. and it works better than just about any business model that has ever existed. 7 hours a day. That is the proof. In my community, there is no such industry. Nobody profits from my boredom. Nobody is engineering my next distraction. When the work is done, the evening belongs to the family, and the family knows how to use it. We play games, real ones, with boards and pieces and arguments about rules that somebody's uncle made up 40 years ago. We talk, we read aloud. My wife and I have sat on the porch on summer evenings and listened to the bees settling down for the night, and that is not boredom. That is the opposite of boredom. That is the sound of a day that meant something. We have a word for this in our tradition, Gelassenheit, Gelassenheit. It means yielding, giving up the need to choose more, to chase more, to have more options. There is a kind of freedom in having fewer choices that the English world has almost entirely forgotten. When you are not standing in front of 200 channels wondering which one will finally make you feel something, you are free to actually feel something about what is already in front of you. I want to pause here and talk to you honestly for a moment, because honesty is what we do on this channel. If what I am saying is useful to you, if this way of seeing things is something you want to carry into your own household, I would ask you to leave a comment and tell me what it looks like where you are. Tell me what your evenings are like. Tell me if your children come to you bored and what you do about it. I go through the comments, everyone, and the people writing in from all across the country are building something together. You are not alone in wanting a different kind of evening. I hear from hundreds of households every week who are making changes, and every one of them started with a small step. That is all I will ask. Now here is where I have to be straight with you, because I would be dishonest if I left this part out. The Amish life is not a fairy tale. We have evenings that are difficult. We have seasons where the work is grinding and the reward is slow. We have young people who leave the community because the life is too constrained for them, and I respect their choice even when it hurts. I am not telling you that my world has no sadness or struggle, because it does. What I am telling you is that boredom, that specific feeling of being unable to find anything worth doing, is not a problem we run into very often. And the reason is not that we are stronger or better. The reason is that the shape of our days puts us in front of real work with real results in real time, and that is all Flo ever asked for. The professor from Chicago, the one with the name I will not try a second time, he said something near the end of his career that stuck with me. He said happiness does not just happen. It has to be prepared for. You have to set the right conditions and then step into them. He said that back in 1990. My great-great-grandfather Yoder, who crossed from the Palatinate in 1838 with a Bible and a chest of carpenter's tools, could have told him the same thing in plain German 200 years before the book was published. The researchers call it flow. The engineers call it optimal experience. We just call it a good day's work. So this weekend, here is what I want you to do. It will not cost you 1 cent. First, pick one task in your house or yard that has a clear end point. Not something endless like cleaning, something with a finish. Fix the squeaky hinge. Build that shelf you have been talking about. Plant something. Weed a row. Give yourself an hour, and do not touch your phone for that hour. Second, sit with your family for one meal, a full meal, with no screens at the table. I do not care if it is awkward at first. It will be. Talk about the food. Talk about the day. Let the silence happen, because silence between people who love each other is not boredom. It is rest. Third, at the end of the evening, ask yourself one question. Did I make anything today? Did I fix anything? Did I grow anything? If the answer is yes, you will notice something. You are not bored. You might be tired. Tired and bored are not the same thing. My grandfather was tired most of his life and bored none of it. This is what 7 hours of screen time is costing you. Not just the time, the capacity to sit still and be present with your own life. The researchers at the University of Toronto just proved it in a laboratory. The Amish proved it in a field 300 years ago. And neither proof changes anything unless you stand up from that couch and put your hands on something real. Next Saturday, after a week of this, you will sit down in the cool of the evening and you will feel something you have not felt in a while. Not entertained, not stimulated, rested. That is different, and it is better. And once you know the difference, you will not go back. The folks in my community already know this works. I am writing this for the folks outside it who were never told. In the next one, I am going to tell you what happens when you take every screen out of a child's hands and give them a pocket knife, a ball of twine, and one single rule. What happened in my neighbor's household last spring is the reason 3 families on our road changed how they raise their children. I think it will surprise you. The people who built this country with their hands knew things we are only just starting to remember.